If you're planning to relocate to the Czech Republic to join your spouse who lives and works in the Czech Republic, then this channel is for you. Hello, my name is Evelyn and welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be detailing my own entire visa experience. So I recently moved to the Czech Republic to join my husband who has been living and working here for a while. And I did an introductory video. If you haven't seen it, go check it out so you can have more deeper understanding as to why I started this YouTube channel in the first place. So like I said, I'm going to be talking about my own visa application process, basically the steps that I went through, the challenges that I faced, and everything that it cost me up from when I started my visa application process until I got my visa. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be making use of my PC because I did list a couple of things that I knew that I probably would not be able to remember. So as not to forget anything, I'm going to be looking at this laptop and communicating to the camera. First things first, I and my husband are basically from Nigeria, and my husband got a job offer in February of 2023 to come work in the Czech Republic, and they offered him a residency as well. So we were dating at that particular time, but eventually we decided to get married, and we got married specifically in January of 2024. And as soon as we got married, we began processing my own visa, which was the reunification visa, so I could join my husband in the Czech Republic immediately after our white wedding and traditional wedding, which later took place in July of 2024. But sadly, that did not work out. I went through a lot of issues and challenges, and that is the major reason why I'm making this video. So if you're someone who is basically going through that process, you can probably take one or two things from it and learn from my mistake. Hopefully your process would not be as stressful as mine. I pray and hope that it will be easier after watching this video. So as soon as I got married, the first thing that I did was to start gathering my documents. And I'm basically going to be telling you that in order for you to start this process, you have to go through the Czech embassy website. Now this website has 99.9% of the information that you will need to process your family reunification visa. As for the other percent, I'm going to be talking about the other things that you'll be needing in this video that were not listed on the website. So basically, I gathered all the documents that I saw listed on the website, and the document that I did get ready was my completed and signed application form, my Nigerian passport, 2 recent passport photographs with a white background, my legalized marriage certificate. And in order to legalize this, at the time when I was applying for my visa, I was living in Ibadan, Nigeria, which was quite far from Abuja. So in Nigeria, most of these documents had to be legalized in Abuja as well. So just prepare your mind for that. And had to get and legalize a police character report, and then a detailed medical report, which has to be from a government officially recognized hospital, and then proof of funds. Now for my proof of funds, I was schooling at this particular point in time. I was in the process of completing my master's degree, so I wasn't working, and my husband had to step in and provide proof of funds on my behalf from his own account, and these proof of funds were more than enough. And then the next thing that we needed to provide was my husband ATM card that also had his proof of funds in them. And the last thing that I have on my list here is a copy of my husband's passport, visa, and employee card. So now after gathering all the documents, we had to send an email. I just want you to know that during my own time, sending an email and getting an interview date was like survival of the fittest. I don't know how it is now. I was told that the process has changed slightly, but then it was so bad that you would see people setting their email to send at 7:59 a.m. and they'll add a couple of seconds to it just so your email can get to the Czech embassy email at exactly 8 a.m. prompt. The reason why is because if you send an email before 8 a.m., it will become invalid. And if you send after 8 a.m., even if it's 1 minute after 8 a.m., you most likely would not get an interview date for that month, for the next month rather, because they have very limited interview slots. And one thing you need to know is that it is not just Nigerians that are applying to the Nigerian Czech embassy. You have other people from other neighboring countries in Africa that are equally applying to the Czech embassy to get their visa. So basically, demand exceeds the supply of visa, so it obviously becomes a survival of the fittest. So imagine competing with all these so many countries for a visa at the Nigerian Czech embassy. Honestly, it's not easy. And just so you understand how tough this process can be, I'm not saying it to scare you, I'm just saying it to prepare your mind, because during my own time, I didn't know that getting a visa was so hard. I was of the opinion that it was very easy, because I know for a fact that Czech isn't really a country that's so popular in Nigeria. I was of the opinion that there would be very few Nigerians who would want to apply to the Czech Republic for a visa, and then which would in turn make the process easier. But I was wrong, dead ass wrong, because it was only when I started my process that I knew how tough it was. Now, for context, I went to the embassy, to Czech embassy, 3 times. I had 2 different interviews, and I applied severally. I think I applied about 5 times before I was finally able to scale through, go for the final interview, and get my visa. That's to tell you how tough it was. So this is just to prepare your mind and to make sure that you try as much as possible um, to not make any mistakes, because I honestly wouldn't have gone through a very tough process if I had not made a mistake during my first interview. So please learn from my mistakes, and I'm going to be talking about them later on in this video as we go on. So when I first applied to go to the Czech embassy, it was in January, and in that January I sent an email and I was asked to come for an interview in February, which was perfect for me. Now when I went for that interview, I gathered all my documents, but one major mistake that I did was that I didn't have the original copy of my medical results, which was given to me at the hospital. And the other thing that I didn't have was the correct passport photograph. Now on your application form, the place where they have passports, you will see the passport size. And honestly, I went to the studio where I took this passport and I told them this is the passport that I want. Most people ended up giving me very tiny passport that could not fit. But it was already too late, because I got this passport a day before traveling, and I even had to fight and quarrel and argue with them before getting this passport. I eventually got my passport, and then I booked my flights, and I also booked my accommodation, and I went to Abuja. Now on getting to the embassy, you need to see me that day. I was so sure, I was so convinced that I was going to pull through. I was so confident. I went there, submitted a copy of my interview invitation from that was sent to my email, and I was asked to sign in. I signed in. All you need to do is to write your name, write your passport number, you write the time in, you sign, and then you go sit in and wait for your turn. So when it's close to your turn, there is this Nigerian man at the embassy that will come collect your documents. He will check through to be sure that you have everything. It got to my turn, and that was when it dawned on me that all my I am ready was all for nothing. So the man told me I did not have the original copy of my medical report, which was going to be an issue, and that my passport photographs were not of the right type, but every other thing was perfect. So he told me that he has a feeling that they would not accept it, but regardless, he took the document to the Czech embassy. Now when you get there, you won't see the Czech people, except they call you for thumb printing or they call you for interview. So the Czech workers there will be the one to interview you, while the Nigerian man, who is the administrative staff, I think, will be the one to get your documents and make sure that you have every other thing, just to make the process faster, I think. So when he told me this, I was like, okay, fine. And then he said he was going to take the documents and try and see if they would accept it or not. He took the document there, and these people refused to accept the document simply because my passport was not of the right size and I did not have the original copy of my medical report. Now what this means is that you will leave. There is no amount of begging that would make them interview you or proceed with you. If you do not have the complete documents, all they will do, you won't even see them to even beg them. The Nigerian who is in charge of receiving your documents will be the one to bring a letter. They will write a letter, they will ask you to sign, and they will give it to you, and they will tell you that this is your letter, this is the reason why you cannot be interviewed or they cannot proceed with you that day, and you'll be asked to leave. It doesn't matter if you're in Abuja, if you can just go and quickly bring the documents and nah. It doesn't matter if it's something that you can quickly bring, they don't care, you would leave. They are very, very strict about their rules, their process. So if you forget anything, Oyo is your case. So go through the website, read, understand, and digest everything just to be sure you do not forget anything. And on the website, another thing that I faced was that For people who are applying to Czech embassy, some people prefer to wait when they receive the email. They will go ahead and gather all their documents. But for me, this is a gamble. During my own time, I did not wait until I got called for an interview before gathering my documents. I usually make sure that I get my documents ready before I even apply, because they will tell you that your documents need to be translated to Czech. In order for you to translate it, you need to send them to Czech Republic, and then for them to be sent back to you to Nigeria. So this can be very expensive. During my time, luckily for me, my husband was already working here, so there were a couple of people who he knew that were usually traveling to Nigeria and coming to Czech, and they did help. But there were times where I had to pay DHL to send the documents and send it back to me. And if you send it through DHL, they will bill you like over 100,000 just to send one A4 paper, which honestly I think is super ridiculous. But that's just the reality of the whole thing. This can be very expensive, but honestly I don't think it's as expensive as when applying to the UK or US. But regardless, it is still expensive and it is really stressful. So when I left the embassy, they asked me to leave. I left, collected my letter, I cried. It was a really sad experience for me because I paid for flights. As at this particular time, I was living in Ibadan, Nigeria, which was very far from Abuja. So I had to go to Lagos to get a very reliable and affordable flight to Abuja. And then I flew to Abuja, paid for accommodation, which was also very expensive because the area they are, I think it's Asokoro, quite an area where you have so many expensive accommodation. And for the purpose of getting to the interview place on time, we had to like pay for a hotel or an accommodation that was very close by for easy transportation. So I paid another flight to travel back, and like I spent a lot of money in this entire process at the beginning. And like this particular amount of money that I spent for flight, for accommodation, was all for nothing. It was heartbreaking, but there's nothing I could do about it. Basically, I cried, cleaned my tears, flew back to my place, and I started the entire process again. So as soon as I got back, I started gathering my documents again. I had to make sure that every document were in check. And funny enough, I even had the original medical report, but for the police character report, it was almost expired because I did the police character report in January before applying, and then I got a date in January to be interviewed in February, and then I went in February. So you can only apply on the 15th of every month, so meaning that I would have to apply on the 15th of February for the possibility of another interview date in March. And as at that March, the police character report will be 3 months old, so it was useless at then. So as soon as I got back home, I made sure to start gathering the documents. I did another police character report as soon as possible. I made sure I sent it to DHL so they can send it to my husband in Czech, so they can translate it and send it back to me in time for my interview. But sadly for me, when I applied in March, they told me that there was no available slots for me for that month. And it all boils down to the thing that I said. You have to send your email around 7:50 something and add a couple of seconds to it. If they tell you the email has to be there, it has to be sent by 8 a.m. prompt. Another thing is that sometimes the time difference might be different. For now, I think the time is at the same as in Nigeria. That's if it is 1 p.m. here, it's 1 p.m. in Nigeria. But at times the time changes, so you need to be very conscious about this and very careful. But I was told that the process have changed, especially the application process for interviews. So I don't know how true that is, but I guess I would get to meet a couple of persons in this channel that will let me know eventually. So when I was done gathering these documents, we applied, and sadly I did not get an interview date. I'm going to be putting a screenshot of the email that I got either here or here. And also, when you're sending your email, make sure that it is brief. No long story, just make sure that it is brief and straight to the point. So I applied the first time, I didn't get. The second time in April, I didn't get. I think it was in May I applied, and I finally got. I applied on the 15th of May at 7:59 a.m. Added a few seconds to it, and luckily for me, it got to the email of these Czech people at exactly 8 a.m. We're very strategic about it. My husband was the one who said it because I can't even deal with these things. And we eventually got an interview date to appear at the embassy in June. So June came, and I made sure I gathered all my entire documents. And when I went there, Luckily for me, I had all my documents, my cash were more than enough. I had everything to the T. And after the whole process, it became time for interview. So the first thing they did was to take my thumbprint. They took my thumbprint. I can't remember if it was just the thumb or the entire finger, but they should take your thumbprint, no big deal. And after they are done, they would ask you to go back, you sit down, and they would ask you to come in for an interview. Now, this was the second time I was going to the Czech embassy, but this was the first time I was being interviewed. Remember the first time I didn't have my documents, so they sent me back to apply again. And then this was the second time that I was able to interface with the Czech staffs, and they asked me a couple of questions. When I tell you that the questions they asked me that day, even I myself was confused, because they were asking me like questions that needed detailed answer, like questions like when did your husband come to when last did your husband come to Nigeria? I need the date, I need how long he stayed, I need where he stayed. Like, I could not really remember the dates for most of questions, but luckily for me, I can give like a time frame and a time range. So I could give like, I could say, okay, he came in December this time around. He stayed for about like 2-3 weeks thereabouts, and you have to be very sure of the answer you're giving them, because they most likely will check. And if it's like that you're just capping, that's your own business. So as not to make this video long, I'm not going to be talking about like the interview questions and all, but if this is something you want me to answer, please let me know in the comments below, and I will make a separate video. I would list out all the questions that I was asked during my interview at the Czech embassy. So they asked me all these questions, and then finally they were like, okay, I can either drop my passport, or when they give me my visa, then I can come back for the passport. They're going to make a decision within 90 days, but it's not certain that I will get the visa, and they don't know, like it's a 50-50, I might get, I might not get. So they told me this, I was like, okay, fine, no problem. And then luckily for me, at that particular point in time, I had just done my wedding. So I and my husband were planning to go to Qatar for our honeymoon. And I would say traveling to Qatar for honeymoon really came in handy, because during the interview they would ask if you've gone to any countries, and the reason why they did this is because they want to know if you've gone to a developed country and came back, or if you just went and overstayed your visa. So during the first interview, I had not gone to any country, so I just told them no, but I had plans on going to Qatar, and I told the lady, and she was like, okay, fine, that since I was going to Qatar, I could take my visa, and then when they make a decision, and if they give me the visa, I can send it through DHL, and they would stamp it, and it will be ready for collection, and they can send it back like that. So I did go to Qatar for my honeymoon, which was amazing. And then I got back, and then in July, these people called me for a second interview. And the reason why they did call me for a second interview was because they were not sure about how I performed during my first interview, meaning that I had to pay for another flight, accommodation, transportation, feeding in Abuja. Like, it wasn't easy, but it paid off eventually. So the reason why they simply called me for that second interview was because they were not sure of my major reason as to why I was going to the Czech Republic. They basically just wanted to like interview me for the second time, get so many answers from me that would determine whether they should grant me the visa or not. Also, you have to make sure that your answer during your first interview tallies with your second interview. If not, Oyo is your case. And another thing was that during my first interview, the lady was like, okay, I should provide a proof of relationship. They didn't state this on the website, and then I was like, I didn't know I was supposed to bring that. It wasn't communicated to me. It was stated on the website. And then she was like, okay, but you should have brought it. So if you're going for a family reunification visa and you're having an interview, please make sure you go with proof of relationship. Now, proof of relationship might mean pictures of you and your husband. When I was going for my second interview, I made sure to go along with these things. So you just have to like gather all the pictures from when you met your husband, even when people were friends, or your spouse, your husband, your wife. When you met them, make sure you take screenshots of all these pictures, and also if they can have timestamps, that would help me. I made sure I took screenshots from my iPhone, and it had like timestamps, it had dates. So some were even as far as 3, 4, 5 years ago, because I said 3, 4, 5 years ago, sorry. Before then, me and my husband, we dated for like 3 years before we finally got married. So they were like about like 3 years ago. So even if your relationship is over 5 years, because at the interview they will ask you when did you meet your husband. So if you can provide proof of that, it will make sense. So take screenshots and then print all these pictures in colored copy on documents like A4 paper, and make sure you staple everything and submit it along with your other documents. So another proof of relationship could be if you and your partner have landed property together, or it could be an investment. You can probably provide the documents showing that the both of you have an investment, shares, or a landed property together. That would also serve as proof of relationship. So that was what I did during my second interview. For all the questions they asked me, like how much does my husband earn, during my second interview they asked me over 30 questions. I'm not kidding, over 30 questions. And I met a couple of people there, and even they, when I came out from the interview, they were surprised because they just kept on asking me so much question. You would think I was lying when I said I was going to the Czech Republic to be with my spouse. They asked for documents. Another document they asked for was the documents of my white wedding. So my court wedding only had the signature of my husband's friend and my own friend, because my parents were not in Lagos as at the particular time when I did my court wedding. And the court wedding, we just did it simply because we wanted to start my visa application process. So the court wedding, even though it was like an authentic document, they were not sure, because there are legit people who apply to go to the US, UK. I read about them online, and I guess the Czech people are aware too. They say they go there, they lie, they get married legally, they don't do white wedding or traditional wedding, and at the end of the day, they will just go there, relocate to the US or UK just because they want to relocate, and they are not even in love, they're not married, nothing. So I guess they were trying to know truly if I and my husband were really married, and so they asked for our wedding certificate, our white wedding certificate. Now this white wedding certificate, it had my father's signature, my mother's signature, it had my father-in-law's signature, my mother-in-law's signature, and it also had my sister's signature, my brother's signature, and my husband brother's signature as well. And we equally had pictures to prove that these people were in attendance. So I guess when they saw that all families were in attendance and all family even signed the white wedding documents, it did give them a sense of ease for them to know, okay, truly we are in love and married, not that we're just putting on a charade just for me to come to the Czech Republic. So another thing again that I think is important is that if you are applying for the family reunification visa, or if you have plans, whether you're a man, you're a woman, I think if you have traveled to a developed country, it will help. One of the reasons why I think they gave me my visa was because I had traveled to Qatar and I came back. I traveled to Qatar for honeymoon. I spent a couple of days and I came back. And even when the guy was interviewing me and he asked me, was like nodding his head. That's to tell you that if you have traveled and come back, they've traveled to other countries, they won't like hesitate giving you visa, because these people do not want to give you visa so you can just come and stay in their country and not go back. They don't want that. They want people who are like sincere, who they would give visa and they would stay, and then after, when their visa is expired, they would eventually come back. Because in the UK, US, this is like a huge issue for them, where they would give people visa. It could be like visa to go visit, and then they would go and they would end up not coming back. They will end up overstaying their visa. I know people like that in the US. So I guess they're just trying to prevent all these things. So if you haven't traveled to a developed country, I think you might want to do so. And if it could be an Asian country, it could be an European country, like basically any good country that is equally affordable, that you can afford to travel to, please travel. This in turn would help you strengthen the possibility of them giving you a visa. It's most likely result in a positive outcome. It might not, but I'm telling you for a fact it will result to a positive outcome. A lot of people that they've denied visa, even people that were coming for short stay, I've heard crazy stories. And during my own time, I was part of a group, a WhatsApp group that had over 1,000 people who wanted to come to the Czech Republic. And out of these 1,000 people, you would rarely see them give like 2-3 persons visa in a month. Now to tell you how tough getting a Czech visa is. So please prepare your mind. Well, there are basically people that are very lucky that they would just go to the embassy once and they would get their visa, no issue. So the next I'm going to be talking about is the cost that I spent on my entire visa application process. So as not to waste your time, I'm just going to be looking at my PC because I don't have everything up here. I'm just going to be looking at them, and I'm also going to be putting the screenshot of how much I spent basically. on the screen, and I'll also include them in the caption of this YouTube video. These were basically the amount that I spent. By the time I added everything together, I had spent almost 4.5 million. In total, I spent 4,404,500 naira. So if probably naira is not your currency, please feel free to convert. You can just go on Google and easily convert this and probably be able to get an idea as to how much it will cost for you to process a family relocation visa. But for me, this was how much I spent. But I'm certain that now, especially if you're in Nigeria and paying in naira, we probably would have increased by 50% because price of things in Nigeria are really skyrocketing, and it's just so sad to see. So I got my visa on September of 2024. That was when my visa came in, and this was what the email looked like. I'm going to put a screenshot of the email. When I got it, I was very happy, knowing finally that everything that we went through was worth it eventually. So this is, if you get your visa eventually, this is the email that you receive. So I did mention that when I went for my first interview, I took my passport because I was traveling to Qatar. So when I received this email, they would ask you to get your insurance ready. So I did my insurance. My husband was the one who did that. Honestly, I don't even know how he did go about that, but basically I got my insurance ready, sent to them, and then they I sent my passport to them via DHL, and then it became, they stamped it and sent it back to me at my location. And at this time, I think I was in Ibadan, and then I got ready and I relocated to Czech Republic precisely on the 1st of October 2024. So yeah, life here has been good and has exceeded my expectations, because for a fact I was very scared coming here because I'm someone who is not so used to change. But I did thank God that I embraced it, and thank God life here has been good so far. So this is basically the end of my video detailing my own entire visa experience. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and if you did find this video helpful or you did enjoy watching it, please do not hesitate to give me a like. And if you have someone who you think would find this video useful, please share with them. So I hope to see you in my next video, and hopefully the next video that I'll be making about my family relocation visa process, we're talking about all the questions that I was asked during my first and second interview at the Czech embassy. So thank you for watching. I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.